The sister Aisha and Muhammad Hijab story has a major update. You may or may not know that Ali Dawah had recorded an entire interview with her before he knew who she was accusing of taking advantage of her with this bait and switch marriage. Ali Dawah then went on to claim that he deleted all the records and even went to the extent of showing a chat with his buddy who had a copy but also lost the interview as well.
Oh, this is an uqsum billah, if Allah is my witness, this all happened in this very house. So that is the reason why I did not release the video. This is the reason why I actually even deleted it. And subhanAllah, I even tried to retrieve it. We couldn't. And I'll show you the messages here, yeah?
Subhanallah, no, Aki, you know, bro, that is gone, Aki, long time. That's gone long time, bro. That's gone long time.
Now that's convenient. Why would you delete something unless you had something to hide? I'm a YouTuber, and let me tell you, I have copies of everything I've made going back to 2016. I don't delete anything because it could be useful in the future. Considering the nature of this interview and the accusations she was making about a prominent Dawah figure, why would he delete it? Ali Dawah claims to be a champion of Muslim women.
That's why I done that video to tell sisters, my dear sisters, if it is me messaging you, whoever it is, if you see us cross the line, you put it on us and you warn us. And if you see us carrying on, you go public and expose us. If we are calling you to haram, if we are talking to you in an inappropriate way, because it is not permissible. Outright, I done that video. It was against you, myself and all the public figures, and it was a message to that brother who was acting up. May Allah forgive him. He's repented, changed his ways, no problem. But the point is what? It was a warning. So,
if a woman was done wrong, why would you delete all the evidence? Very, very suspicious. Well, guess what? Lo and behold, this interview was leaked online. My best guess is that Aisha herself kept a recording of it because she didn't completely trust these people. And boy, oh boy, are you going to want to watch this. It's incredibly damaging to hijab and tells you everything you've been suspecting all along is true. That she is not the liar and mentally unstable person that the Dawah gang has painted her to be. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to support her telling the truth. And we're going to expose that evidence. The interview between Ali Dawah and Aisha that was never supposed to be released. Let's get into it. Muhammad Hijab has been denying all along that he married Aisha and that he did anything wrong, behaved unethically, or harmed this woman. Even though there's a plethora of text message evidence and a consistent story from Aisha, he continues to lie. But we have evidence from him himself where he alludes to what happened in a video on Ali Dawah's channel a year ago and admits he broke it up because it didn't suit his needs.
On a purely Islamic perspective.
Yes.
So, for example, if I get married to a woman, and I say these are my conditions.
Yeah.
Now she doesn't like those conditions.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll do is I'll say, fine, you have an ultimatum. You either continue in this situation or I will divorce you. She says, I'm going to continue in the situation. I say, I cannot continue. I say, you're divorced. Mm. So in a sense, I've got the trump card. Like in a way, I don't need to compromise with anyone.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean? Like in a sense that if I don't want something, no one's going to force. Even this sahabiya, this woman, she didn't compromise. She didn't like the guy. She went to the Prophet Muhammad. That's it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? There's some things I'm never going to in some cases, the man is more severe, obviously. I've got divorce in mind.
It's more instant.
Yeah.
A woman is more.
But what I'm saying is that compromise what? I refuse to compromise, actually. Do you know what I mean? Like, what happens if I refuse to compromise? Do you know what I mean?
Notice he even mentions the exact same story of Mughith and Barira that's in the text messages Aisha released. The date of this show lines up to November 2023. This is when it all happened. Uncompromising, arrogant hijab just wanted to use her for sex and got caught. And now in their desperation, Ali Dawah and his buddies are faking screenshots, even voice notes, to try to make her look like she's a crazy one. Now I give you my wife Huda, who's going to go through the deleted interview.
Is Aisha telling the truth? This entire Muhammad Hijab and Aisha Miss Your Marriage disaster has been one wild ride. And after watching videos and listening to clips, reading comments from all sides, you might be struggling to figure out what's really going on. And that's where I'm coming in. There is something else I wanted to touch upon today in regards to Aisha's story. I have mentioned many times before that Muslims are quick to dismiss Aisha as mentally unwell, some unhinged stalker. It's odd that Muslims claimed she was a stalker, yet it seems like Muhammad Hijab willingly kept her in his life and did not cut contact with her. That seems interesting. If you had a mentally unwell stalker in your life, would you keep them around or cut contact? After hearing Aisha's interview with Ali Dawah, I wanted to point out my personal observations that lead to one of them telling the truth. I am going to go through this interview, and I am going to put on my psychology hat and systematically analyze what I extracted from her words coupled with her emotions. Let's roll the clip. The interview between Ali Dawah and Sister Aisha.
To the brothers and sisters and dear friends, this is a special episode which we will be talking about. As you guys know, in this room we've talked about many other topics when it comes to the Bitter Truth Show, gender roles, and many other elements and many other topics. This is a special episode. Why? Because it involves a sister who is here, who I personally invited, and I personally wanted to do this, and we'll come to why and what the story entails. But today's topic, shall I say, is the dark side of public figures. And why have I made the title of that video? We're going to find out, inshallah. The sister is here, will be hiding her identity, her voice will be changed to protect her, inshallah. But there'll be many important lessons for us to learn from her story of what she went through, and from myself as well. I wouldn't say what I went through was as bad as what the sister herself went through, but there's many lessons for us to learn for brothers and sisters who are looking to get married, who are married, to learn that they do not repeat the same mistakes, or shall I say the oppression that others have done to sisters like yourself and many brothers out there. So we're going to get straight into, inshallah. Obviously I'm not going to introduce the sisters and stay anonymous. We're going to, inshallah, get straight into the interview.
Ali Dawah says that he wants to talk about the dark side of public figures. But I want to point out that sham marriages, whatever you want to call them, have been happening since the beginning of time. I know these stories mostly in regards to converts, such as someone vulnerable being married to a scummy sheikh with a second wife and an entire family in another country. What we are seeing with Sister Aisha is not new. It's just a new scandal with a public figure. Keep that in mind, guys. Women in this religion are used and discarded all of the time.
Without wasting any time, inshallah, I want you to tell me from the very beginning. Like, maybe if you want to give some context, if you want to start, I'm going to leave it to you. Tell me where you want to start the story from, and then we will take it from there.
First of all, I would like to make two very important points. The first one is, this is my very first appearance on social media, like me coming on social media. And I am doing this because I had no other option. I have sought help from scholars, from shuyukh, and you have contacted me so many times telling me you want me to come out about this, speak out about this. And I have rejected that for so many months. And this happened way before the stories that have come up recently. This happened so many months before. You have been calling me to come up and speak, and I have refused, and I have told you that this is a scholarly topic. It has to be discussed with a qadi, with a scholar. They have to come out with a verdict, and they have to scrutinize both our sides and analyze our talks, both of us. There must be justice done by a qadi, by a scholar. I couldn't find that. The sheikh who was involved told me that we don't have this Islamic rulings and Islamic court on these kind of things. I wanted to share my story. I do strongly believe that I have paid a very big price, and that is because of the trust that I had for this person, the respect that I had for him, and the fact that I have left full leadership.
Okay, so this is Aisha's first interview on social media, before Behind Veils came into the picture. I want you to pay attention, as we are going to see a lot of consistency in Aisha's retelling of the story when compared to her interview with Behind Veils, as well as how it made her feel, what happened, etc. Ali Dawah did open the interview in a good way. He left it up to Sister Aisha to speak, instead of taking over and being the one to do the majority of the speaking. By asking her to tell him from the beginning what happened, he is being the listener here. Aisha has said before and again in this interview that she has sought help from scholars and people of knowledge. This checks out as a consistency. I also find it interesting and telling that she had the opportunity over and over again to speak out, but has rejected offers. I would think a crazy stalker wouldn't want to hold back on the opportunity to talk. She even said Ali Dawah contacted her many times. I want to point out that her use of past tense is consistently aligned with telling the truth as well. She continuously says things like, I had no other option. This happened so many months before. I have refused. They have to scrutinize both of our sides. I couldn't find the sheikh who was involved. I have paid a very big price. To me, her saying that she had no other option and that she has paid a very big price shows me her ability to be accountable to what happened to her. She recognizes something awful happened to her, describing the past and what happened, then describing how it affected her in the present. Also, the fact that she consistently uses the past tense like this shows that she is connecting these events to her own personal memory rather than dropping the ball, stuttering, failing to recall what happened. There's fluidity in her retelling of this story in both Behind Veils and this particular interview. I'm sure if I spoke to her as well, she would retell this story in the same exact way she did every other time. Before I continue, I'd like to ask for your help. A thumbs up goes a long way to helping us get more visibility. I'm going to be doing more, as well as deep dives into the world of deception versus truth in a Dawah world. So click subscribe and consider supporting us on Patreon. Alright, thanks for your help. And back to the video now.
For him. And the other point is mentioning the previous stories. You came out with a video and I was honestly very worried because of that video you made. Because for me, I thought like after your video, and because you are an influencer, now many people are going to see any woman who will come out and speak. And they are going to categorize her and they are going to think this woman, probably she fits in that category. Probably she's just lying. Because you are an influencer, and this is the power of social media, which has changed the course of the war in the Middle East and with Palestine and all that. I have told you this, and I told you that I'm very worried. And you came out and made that statement. You said you just didn't want the Dawah men to be categorized. And I am asking you now if you would like to make a comment about that, because I don't want women to be categorized too.
She says, you came out with a video, and I was honestly very worried. Again, showing attachment to the events and recalling what happened with clarity and consistency. Ali Dawah at no point has interrupted her or corrected anything she said. He has a chance here, but nothing. She even makes a reference to Palestine here, talking about how social media has changed what is happening in the Middle East. That doesn't seem to align with what Ali Dawah has stated before, that she is some anti-Palestine person. She seems to be showing empathy for what is happening here. At least that is what I am assuming. Also, all the clips on her YouTube channel have been pro-Palestine. You know what else I find interesting? Ali Dawah asked her an open-ended question, giving her the ability to speak her mind. She said that she didn't want Dawah guys to be categorized, so she returned the questioning back to him. She can sit here and have an unhinged, mentally unstable rant, but she doesn't.
I think, yeah, that's good. Obviously, you got in contact with me first on Instagram, and obviously wanted to go about the proper way, like you said, through a judge, etc., which shows your sincerity. You was not here, you did not come to me and say, I want to do a video. You didn't come with that, which is true, which I found very genuine of yourself. And the reason why I was pushing for this is because this happens, and I know it happens. I hear of stories of it happening. So to me, like, I believe it is done.
In my teen years, right, my very best friend, very close to mine, she left Islam. I was a teenager at that time, around 15, and that shook me tremendously. And I started feeling ashamed and questioning myself. And I thought there is no way you are incapable of defending your or justifying your belief. So that was a changing point in my life. I started learning about my religion, getting more religious and learning and attending classes. And I even, subhanallah, joined the Dawah group when I was in my country. This should be around 2004. So I joined the Dawah group, and it was mentored by one of the scholars in my country, other shuyukh that used to give us advice. And we started with whatever resources we had. While I am learning and going through my journey, I started meeting more people who have questions, who don't have answers to them. Here we are talking about religious knowledge. It's mandatory on every Muslim, whether they are male or female, right? And it's not like a career. That's something that I needed. I needed to find answers. I needed to take care of
Islamic education you're talking about.
Islamic education, obviously. So I was searching, and it happened, subhanAllah.
Okay, so they got in contact on Instagram first, which is a truth from Ali Dawah. We saw the screenshots from that. He even says what I have been gathering from this entire event after the fact, after this interview with him from behind veils and every other form of insanity this story has taken on, that Sister Aisha is sincere and genuine.
Then I got married. I got married to my ex-husband, the father of my child. And one of the criteria that I was specifically looking for is he would be someone of knowledge, and he would have the same ambition of spreading Islam as I do have it. Because again, I have gone through that trauma, I have gone through that emotional experience, and that is something that I was specifically looking forward to. The man I got married to first, he said that he is part of the group Tabligh, who are very specific in giving da'wah within the Muslims. He said, I do give da'wah also here in London to non-Muslims and so on. I am student of knowledge and all those kind of things. So this was one of the main points for which I got married to him.
She talks about her first marriage and her first husband, seeking similar things in him that she saw in Mohammed Hijab, a person of knowledge. I can't blame her for that. That's what all of us are searching for when we want to meet someone with a similar lifestyle and value system maybe. It's clear that doing dawah is a part of her life goals and value system. She mentioned this in her Behind Veils interview as well. She is again recalling facts from her earlier life being involved in dawah, which is another consistency. I wanted to point out in regards to things Aisha has said that maybe have not been favorable or said in the best way. We also have to remember that Aisha's first language is most likely not English, so we should consider that when we evaluate things like what she said on Twitter and other platforms. Ali Dawah heavily criticized her and framed her as someone not caring about Palestine, but from reading her tweets, that's not what I gathered from all of that. Given the quality of evidence from the other side, all I say is I question things, guys, especially when they just release little clips.
When I came here to this country, it just turned out that he's not really into seeking knowledge.
Okay.
That is something that I found out obviously when I came here. I started giving things time. I started reconsidering the situation. But unfortunately, our relationship ended with a divorce.
This is another very interesting part of her story with her past marriage. The fact that she was able to let go. She recognized a problem in her marriage, in the value system she has as a Muslim woman. She realized her husband was not as religious as she thought. Instead of becoming a crazy stalker in this situation, she was able to let go and get a divorce.
Okay.
So here where this person came into the picture. While I was still married, we were linked together by the Islamic institute that he works for.
Okay.
They called him, he attended for some specific kind of situation, like help, because I was engaged in the da'wah that time. And he was there to give guidance, to give his input and so on. And so that was the first meeting.
Yeah.
Later on, while I was going through my khula, he came into the picture and I was reaching out to him to ask about questions. What do I do? Where do I go? And so on and so forth. Like which Islamic council do he was giving me directions, he was telling me what to do and so on.
So you went in just to get some knowledge on how to go about things.
This matches up with what Aisha said in her Behind Veils interview, that she met Mohammed Hijab while she was in the process of a divorce. She also mentioned how he was offering to help her in regard to her divorce, which matches up with what she's been saying here as well. If someone can tell the same story over and over without being inconsistent, that says something about the truthfulness behind what she is saying. To me, hearing the same story told in the same way over and over is a sign that what Aisha is saying is a genuine and accurate recollection. Ali Dawah asked her to tell her side of things, and I am seeing nothing but memory consistency here when compared to her Behind Veils interview.
Yeah,
Okay.
because obviously the person we are talking about is not just a social media figure.
Okay.
This is someone who has PhDs in Islamic studies, Oxford, Cambridge, Al-Azhar, the Middle East. He has contact with every scholar out there in the world.
Can you tell me the storyline? How did this evolve from here to him proposing marriage?
Oh man, if Ali Dawah released this before all of this drama unfolded, we would know exactly who she was talking about. It's pretty obvious at this point who she is referring to.
We used to talk, and from now and then, and I used to reach out to him. I used to call him and ask him about advice. He sometimes used to call me back himself.
Okay, so let's just add to that. When you say we used to talk, can we give some context to that? Because what do you mean by we used to talk?
I used to ask him questions, call him to ask him questions. Again, as I said, this is a teacher. His profession is to teach others. He has programs and projects about teaching others in Islamic context. And while we used to have that kind of conversations, he started giving me hints that he was interested in getting married to me. He used to talk to me about himself. Like, for example, when we are addressing my story with my ex-husband, he would say, oh, you know what, I am not like him. That's not how I would act as a husband. He used to share his personal life with me, telling me, you know what, this is what happened in my story. And would you consider polygyny? For me, it's a traditional marriage. There are emotions and people get married and they make a family. They have mutual ambitions and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw the picture.
So Ali Dawah interjects here and asks her for context on what it means that they used to talk. She mentions the same thing she did in the other interview, that he would answer questions and then he started dropping hints. If Aisha was truly making all of this up, how in the world is she able to tell this story in the same way over and over? She must have been the best liar on the face of this planet if she was able to construct these lies over and over for every single person she told this story to. She even tells us the story again of how Muhammad Hijab said he would be as a husband.
Okay.
That's what I was expecting.
How much longer did you wait? Because from here, did he cut those hints of interest, or were they still there? Because you said he was not patient. What happened now?
He didn't come forward, but he was still showing me that he's interested in me, and he called me for his lectures and for his projects.
So he's kind of leading you on now?
Yeah, I was confused because I thought if you would like really to get married, then you have to make the step. That's what I was telling myself. Basically, I forgot completely about that. And I thought, okay, because you are gonna now have to find a guardian for yourself and your child. You can't just keep sitting here and waiting. Then obviously you have to start looking to get married. And basically that's what I did. I was trying my best because I have my child and I have to make sure that I'm going to be in the best company out there.
It's not just for you, it's for your child as well.
Yeah, exactly. To be safe, to have a good companionship and all that. So that's when he came forward.
So he came forward?
Yeah.
How?
So he texted me. He was like, I know that you are trying to get married. Would you consider me as a husband? So that's when he proposed.
Some more evidence here that she's not a crazy stalker. Aisha seems like she was genuinely looking for a husband that was not Muhammad Hijab. She made efforts to try and find a suitable partner for herself and her child. Muhammad Hijab was probably observing this, one failure after another, and he was probably going back and forth between his potential role in this. Should I seek a second wife? There might be some benefit here to me. But first, I'm going to let her attempt to find someone else. If nothing else works out, then I will approach her with my plan.
So he proposed. Are you aware that he's proposing for polygyny?
He said that.
So how did you feel?
For me, there was mutual interest.
So you was interested. Okay, good. From there, tell me what happened. Like from there on, was he proposed to you? Did you get your father involved?
So from the very first few texts, he told me, who is your wali?
Yeah.
And I told him, my father is still alive, and he's my wali.
Yeah. And then, did he contact him?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were red flags. In the beginning, I didn't feel it, but now that I'm looking back at that, he was reluctant to contact my dad as a wali. He said, are you sure like it's going to work? Do you think that he's going to be accepting the marriage and so on and so forth? But he didn't push back that much.
Okay.
I told him my father is my wali, and he did go ahead with it. He did contact my father.
So what did your dad say to you then?
Before he contacted my father, by the way, his contact to my father went ahead for so many weeks. They spoke together like 2, 3, 4 times. He came forward with this proposal, and then he mentioned this point while we were talking and discussing the marriage. For me, at that point, things were not clear, and I couldn't understand it. There was a lot of ambiguity. I questioned that. I wasn't sure about it, but we spoke. And he spoke to my father, and I came forward and told him, look, if we are going to go with this marriage, these are my conditions.
All of this is checking out. Hijab asking about her wali, and Aisha trying to get her father involved. Guys, I want to say something here real quick. Aisha is clearly and calmly reflecting on the red flags of this situation. In no interview does she ever appear obsessed and wants to get back with Muhammad Hijab. To me, she was someone who was deeply wronged, and she feels a need to talk about it. Also, I wanted to mention something else here as well about having a conscience. A conscience is something that everyone has, no matter who they are. Even the most heinous serial killers have a conscience. What drives people to do the things that they do is the fact that they suppress the conscience deep down. It's like pushing something under the surface, as deep as you can make it go. That is how people commit acts that are awful, such as taking secret second wives, lying to everyone about it. In the moment of the act, the conscience is suppressed to the point where they can do these things. I would argue that I see Aisha's conscience at work here as well. If we put ourselves in her position, she might be feeling bad, like she put her family and daughter through a lot. She might be feeling as though she was used and discarded and wasted so much time on this loser, and it's heavily weighing on her. The mind naturally wants to confess, wants to talk about these things. That is why she goes to Ali Dawah, 100 Imams, Salman, and people like us to talk about this. She has a conscience at work here, and she wants to speak out, not suppress this, bury this deep down anymore. The conscience is something that all of us have, that internal and external voice that tells us right from wrong. In our early life, that voice is usually our parents. As we get older, perhaps that voice switches. We can have an external conscience, which can become God, our culture, another authority. For Aisha, her external conscience in her case is Allah and her culture. Her external conscience might be telling her that she needs to speak out about this to protect other women. This is how religion can be used for good or bad, as we have seen in these countless interviews and how each side presented itself. In Muhammad Hijab's external conscience, Allah is someone that gives permission to do wrong to people, such as lying to your first wife and taking a second. This is how religion can be used for bad. In Aisha's mind, her external conscience of Allah is someone that seeks justice in this life and the next.
What was your conditions?
So my conditions were a list that I did write down very specifically. Okay. And this is something I would like really to be very specific about, because it's related to what's halal and what's haram.
Of course.
I am in the exact same position as his own mother.
Yeah.
He has sisters, he has daughters. I have my own child, right? Yeah. He knows that I don't have a guardian. He's been helping me. The fact that you are telling me that you shouldn't trust a person just because they look in a certain way, I am not an idiot. I wouldn't just blindly trust him. Even if he has Islamic studies, I don't know this person. I've never met him before. I'm not going to trust him.
She is clearly struggling to understand how someone can do this, especially when he's a man of knowledge and they have a mother who is in the same position as her. It sounds like he has a single mom. He also has sisters. It's truly hard to wrap one's mind around how they could do something like this to you when they have family members that it could easily happen to as well. I can give a bit of insight into what I think is happening here. This is a form of moral disengagement, okay? Separating one's actions from what they know to be morally correct. For example, Muhammad Hijab wouldn't like his own family to be used in this way. His internal conscience tells him this is wrong. This is definitely part of his morals and values, to protect his mother and sisters. However, he can morally disengage when it comes to someone else, like Aisha. In this case, his internal conscience knows this is wrong as well, but his external conscience, which has become a law, validates it. In Islam, what he is doing is completely halal and morally justified in the religion itself.
So I want to highlight something. I have gone through mental health breakdown. I have almost lost my insanity. I was in so much shock to the point that I am going till date through periods of dissociation.
By Aisha mentioning having a mental breakdown, almost losing her sanity, and going through periods of disassociation, This is what they use to weaponize her so-called confession to being mentally unstable. I find it intriguing that she mentions disassociation. When someone disassociates, it can be because it's a response to overwhelming stress in one's life, which aligns with her talking about how this affected her mental health. It sounds like what Aisha experienced, and having the door shut on her face by every single person she talked to about this tired her out to the point where her stress overpowered her coping mechanisms, which can lead to disassociation. I think that's completely understandable. Where do you go? Who do you talk to when no one seems to be listening or caring? How do you cope? You don't. Especially when the person abusing you is a leader in your community and he keeps shoving in your face that there's absolutely nothing haram or wrong about what he's doing. It can cause an earthquake of cognitive dissonance.
Okay, but can you tell them what happened? The people are watching, because the thing is now, when these things happened, is there any other red flags? Because I really want people, the reason I'm doing this is I don't want this thing to be repeated. What other red flags did you see? Did your dad tell you something? What else happened? Can you tell me the story?
So he said very specifically he didn't want to give a high mahr.
Okay, that to me is a red flag. Somebody who is iffy about talking about your wali, that's your guardian, is a red flag. Very important. Number two, a high mahr is another red flag. And this is why I tell sisters, ask for a decent mahr. Because if a man has ill intentions, sisters sometimes act very pious. Oh yeah, just read me Surah Baqarah. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is a very beautiful thing. But we're dealing with different kind of shayateen in our time. Your mahr is your haqq. It's given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you. Your guardian, number one. Your mahr, number two. One thing that you said to me before this, you said that he didn't want to mention his name to your dad.
So this is the little bit when the situation of the nikah comes up. So when we were getting the nikah plan, he said, look, I want to have this nikah done on a Zoom call. I told him, you have to go and meet my father.
Okay.
Because my father is of a generation where there is no way I would speak to him about this. You want me to go and speak to this is disgraceful. This is disrespectful. You want me to speak to my dad and tell him that you need to speak to this person on a Zoom. And then I told him, so why don't you go and meet him in person in my country?
Yeah.
He said, look, you are from the same city as my other wife. I really want this marriage to happen, right? I am keen in making both households work. Please don't put the stick in the wheel. We have to make things happen. Like, we have to facilitate things. We make things easy.
I hate to say it. I really hate to say this, but this mahr thing can be such a scam, especially in marriages like this. Second marriages I am referring to here. I am not surprised either, especially since Mohammed Hijab is well off, that he does not want to give a high mahr. Mahr in a case like this can be something as little as $100. I know it sounds awful, and it is awful, but it happens, and it happens a lot. Ali Dawah is right here though. Some sisters have poor boundaries when it comes to this, and they feel bad asking for a nice mahr. Maybe a kitten, maybe a couple $1,000, maybe it could be anything, right? But $100 is pathetic. They let this guy off the hook by reading a surah or something stupid like this. Also, another huge red flag is not wanting to meet her father, which she has mentioned before. Listen, I don't care who he is, how famous he is, etc. If a man truly cares about you and wants to marry you, he won't make these excuses about his first wife being from the same city, not wanting to say his name to your father, not wanting to physically go to her country to meet him. If he truly cared at all, he would make that effort.
It's because I really want this marriage to happen. On top of that, he said, I want the Zoom call where I wouldn't show up. I told him there is absolutely no way I'm talking to my dad.
This is Zoom call that hit up?
He wouldn't show up on the video call. He said it's going to be an audio call. I told him, look, I'm not going to talk to my father about this. This is something I'm not going to do.
So let me get this right. So you're doing the nikah now?
The nikah, yeah.
He wants the nikah to be done on Zoom.
Right.
He doesn't want to show his face. So how's the nikah going to be done?
No, that's what he said.
Oh, so he said it should go be audio. You said you're not going to get your dad involved in. How are you going to get married? You have to help your guardian.
No, I told him I'm not going to speak to my father about a situation, a nikah done this way.
How's the nikah going to be done?
Exactly. I'm telling you that I refused this way, and I told him my dad is not going to accept My dad would never accept this arrangement of a nikah because of his age, because of his background. And any man, even if he's a young father getting married his daughter, here in the West, accepts to make a nikah on a Zoom.
So Aisha is being painted as a desperate stalker, obsessed, whatever people have been calling this. But she seems to have some boundaries in this situation. She is standing up to hijab and telling him what she doesn't like about this situation. She is exercising her ability to say no, this isn't acceptable, etc. If I had to guess, even in these moments she is recalling, she knew deep down this was wrong and she knew this was a bad idea. But that's what happens sometimes when we fall in love, right? You guys might have stories like this. That friend or family member that becomes blinded by love and makes decisions that are not good for them despite giving them advice.
So what happened is he said, look, what we are going to do, he sent me a website and it has a fatwa in it. This fatwa says, if we are going to get a wakil, someone to replace my dad, I told him there is no way that my father is going to accept to make your nikah with me in this way. And if you don't want to go and meet my dad in person, there has to be some other way.
Okay.
By the way, him not wanting to come in front of my dad was only during the specific moment of the nikah. And he gave the excuse, he said, those who are attending may take a screenshot, may take a video. I am trying to preserve this marriage. I don't want them to threaten me in front of my other wife with that later on. That's why I don't want to show my face.
Okay.
And I can't visit your dad because your dad is in the same city as my other in-laws. And if I go there, it's extremely risky.
Okay.
That didn't really make that much of a sense for me because you can still go and meet my dad. But again, as I told you, I am holding him at a very high place and I trust him.
In a lot of the comments I have been reading, I see Muslims saying that this is suspicious because who gets married without a wali, which means a woman without her male guardian, which is taboo in their religion. Women don't get that dignity or autonomy. It has to be a man in her life who decides this for her. I just laugh because these people are either lying or they have never met a convert in their life or heard stories about converts being taken advantage of. Now, Aisha is a born Muslim, so she knows how these red flags work when the mahar is low and they refuse to meet your parents. That is something standard here, to want to meet the girl's parents and ask for her hand in marriage. It's also part of the relationship building in these cultures, right? You care if the girl comes from a nice family. You don't want to be a stranger in their lives. Personally, I find it strange that he said it was risky to meet her family because of his other in-laws. I am sure there are many cities nearby or places nearby where he can go and meet her family while mitigating that risk of being seen. She can also wear niqab, which would make her more hidden, not recognizable. Just a thought. Also, if you think about it, this is an entire operation that needs to be planned by Mohammed Hijab. Think about it. They're both in the UK, so Mohammed Hijab needs to plan travel. He needs to book a ticket to Morocco. So what bank account does he use? How does he pay for the ticket? If his wife has access to his bank accounts and credit card statements, it's going to be strange to see a ticket booked to Morocco, her home country, without her. Do you see what I mean? For him to go there, effectively meet Aisha's family and hide this entire thing, it's going to be a lot of stress for him.
So what we agreed to was there is going to be wakil. I'm going to try my best to speak to my dad, allocate a wakil, representative, to replace the nikah on his behalf, while my dad is going to come and visit me here in the country. You are going to get to meet each other.
Is this visit going to happen after the marriage or before the marriage?
Obviously after the marriage, because he needs to apply for a visa, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the visa could possibly take a very long time. And I spoke to my dad and I asked him his permission.
Yeah.
I convinced him, I told him this is...
What was your dad saying?
My dad was not really 100% comfortable with
Of
this.
course not. He's a man. This is why guardianship is very important.
Yes.
This is why I need to stress on this here. Guardianship is very important because, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to women in a different way. Us men, we see straight through. We know. This is why I'll go through all the stories.
And he knew that my father is coming here. He sent me a website link and told me, look, Actually, the wakil thing is a good thing, is Islamically correct, because here in this fatwa it says someone is asking on Islam website fatwa something. It says, can we make the nikah where the father is not present with the wakil until the father will come later on and meets the husband?
Okay.
And the scholar and the mufti said, yes, that is Islamically allowed, as long as the father is happy, does trust the people who are involved, like is a person of trustworthiness, and the wakil is a person of trustworthiness. So it's all evolved around trustworthiness.
Wow. So Aisha has said before that her dad is old and unwell. If you're watching this, Aisha, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that correctly. I just remember you saying he was unwell. But to be honest, how shameful to not meet her father in his home country, but to have him apply for a visa in the UK, which may get denied, then have him travel all the way to the UK. I'm not saying this is shameful for Aisha. This is shameful for Mohammed Hijab. Visas from countries like this often do get denied, like Egypt and Morocco. It's because they worry the person's intent is to immigrate, right? Mohammed Hijab should have gone to him, not the other way around. This whole wali thing is really wild to me though. 3 out of the 4 madhabs require a wali. The Hanafi madhab does not require a wali. When I got married, I was told I did not need a wali, which I would assume the imam used the Hanafi ruling. My parents were also far away when I got married and not Muslim. I can't help but think, again, if Aisha was lying and she was an obsessed stalker, Mohammed Hijab really held out for the end game here, to have a hotel marriage. It sounds like there was a lot of back and forth here, a lot of planning and thought that went into this whole idea. This isn't some baby reindeer situation.
So obviously, he's convinced with this fatwa that he got, but he had other plans, subhanAllah, so he's actually misusing this. So what happened after? You got married to him?
Yeah, we got married.
Who was the witnesses?
Again, he's the leader here.
So who's the one who's doing the nikah? Don't tell me you did.
No, it's not him who did the nikah. He did allocate someone to do the nikah.
So what happened? You got married, then how did things turn upside down?
SubhanAllah, as I told you, I mentioned during the nikah that the involvement of my family is 100% a must.
Yeah.
And I think that was really natural because I felt like I am the only one there and I don't know the other ones.
Yeah.
I only know him.
Yeah.
And naturally it came out from my heart and I was like my family, I want them part of this marriage. So I doubled down on that point because later on he's going to accuse me that I actually didn't want my family involved in this. So when we got married, basically everything was normal. We met, right? Yeah. And now came the moment when I told him, okay, we're going to have to talk to my family and say congratulations, your blessings, barakallahu lakuma, and so on. Khalas, we're going to make a family right now, yeah?
Yeah.
He said no.
He said no?
He said no.
How did you take that?
He said he didn't want to speak to my family, he didn't want to have other in-laws. And he gradually started convincing me and persuade me that actually our life will be better if my family wouldn't be part of it.
Oh, okay. And then what happened?
So he was like, again, here comes the statements that he started making.
Yeah.
He said, you know what, your sisters are going to be jealous, you got married twice. One of them didn't get married yet. Actively persuade me, convince me that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So Aisha knew none of the witnesses at her wedding, and it sounds like as of right this moment, these people are in hiding. No one wants to come forward and talk about it, say they were there. I get the vibe from how the nikah was done on Zoom with strangers as witnesses, and then Hijab doubling down again and not wanting to meet her family, shows his commitment to the secrecy of this, distancing himself from her family and her child as much as possible. Why would someone not want to meet your family, your child, give you a low mahr? Is this a sign of someone who actually wants a marriage? No, I would think not. Aisha is mentioning the same thing she mentioned in her subsequent interview with Salman, that Mohammed Hijab said her sisters are going to be jealous of her. That's another consistency, a complication in her story here. Do you really believe all these little details are just made up, yet they remain perfectly consistent? I don't.
He said that I am Islamically not under the obligation of speaking to your family. Actually, Islam allows me not to speak to them.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be questioned if I don't do that.
Okay.
And I was like telling him, the Prophet ﷺ, after the death of his first wife, Khadija, he used to hear the voice of her female friends coming in town, and he used to get up and serve them and ask them to be served food and welcome them and so on.
Yeah.
He is keeping ties with the female friends of his deceased wife. You're talking to me that my father, who has just given you his daughter,
Yeah, exactly.
and as an amana, you don't want to even speak to him and tell congratulations?
This is the problem with Islam, how every single thing about it is so inconsistent. While that sounds like a nice, kind thing to do, look at the other Islamic justifications we have at play here. This entire system is a complete mess. Remember earlier when I was saying that Aisha's version of her external conscience is Allah and Muhammad being kind and good, wanting to be just? Well, that's the issue with Islam here. There are some good things we can extract from Islam, but the bad outnumber the good by a lot. Islam also operates in terms of extreme polar opposites, where both sides might be right and true, but there's no universal ruling to go by in so many cases. For instance, we have Muhammad Hijab saying it's Islamically justified to not speak to his wife's parents, while Aisha is using an example of how Muhammad treated his late wife's friends. How can these issues be solved when Islam is so contradictory?
I was shocked.
So then what
I
happened
was
after?
traumatized. At that point, I realized two things. Number one, I have the option of breaking this up instantly.
Yeah.
Going outrageous, that wouldn't be wise
Yeah.
because I am getting married for the second time.
Yeah.
I am in my 30s.
Yeah.
I have a child. This person, actually, I really trust him.
Yeah.
I think he's going to step back from this position.
Mm.
These are the two options. It's either I break down or I try to convince him to step back from his position.
Yeah.
So I started talking to him. We started fighting about it, arguing a lot.
Yeah.
First, he started telling me, okay, delay it, we will do it that later.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to them. And I couldn't talk to my father and tell him the marriage happened. Because when I speak to my dad and tell him, okay, salaam alaikum, did you get married? Yes. Okay, where is your husband? Oh, he doesn't want to speak to you. I was like, so what am I going to do? He said, lie to him. He told me, okay, lie to him. Tell him the marriage didn't happen yet.
She says that she had the option of breaking this up instantly and going outrageous, but she decided it was not wise to do that. You know, being hurt, angry, or reflecting back on this and talking about it is not obsession or being a stalker. In fact, all of this suggests otherwise. All of this talk, in my opinion, is simply a way to discredit her account of what happened. I do see a discrepancy in what Aisha says in this interview versus what was clipped from Muhammad Hijab's alt account.
Ultimate Smoking Gun, a voice recording of Bushra, in which she unequivocally states that there was no marriage to Muhammad Hijab and that she fabricated the entire story to avoid being labeled crazy.
So did you marry Hijab or not?
I didn't marry him, but if I told people this, they would think I'm crazy and so on.
Do you think this is fair on him and his family?
With all due respect to yourself, I can take my rights with my own hand.
Aisha's audio is clipped saying she never married him. On the other hand, we have Aisha on Ali Dawah's channel telling us that she was being told to lie to her dad about being married to Muhammad Hijab. The audio of her that was clipped saying she never married him, maybe that was clipped from a more extended conversation, but it's not adding up.
Okay, I told him, okay, well, hold on.
More of the responsibility now, because when the marriage ends, then you can't tell your dad because out of shame. I know that he's done anything shameful, he should be ashamed of himself. But now it makes it better for him because then the dad is not involved, he's not going to know, and he got away with it. So then what happened?
So he went on a trip, on a Dawah trip, ironically. He went to the Dawah trip and I was stuck.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what to do. Am I going to call my father? My father is going to have a heart attack. He has already gone through a lot. He's an old man. He's going to feel guilt. Because why did I give permission to my daughter to get married and then this happened?
Did he ever come to your house, like your house that you guys had? Did you have a
As
house?
I said, we are neighbors. So he never came to my house. He never met my child. And when I say neighbors, I mean in the neighborhood. It's not like literally neighbors.
Oh, that's fine, but you got married. Did he not come to, like, his husband coming home?
By the way, he wasn't even willing to have much conversation on the phone.
Oh, let alone coming home.
Let alone coming home. And he made that clear, by the way. He wouldn't come home until I move out because of the situation of neighborhood. That's something I knew. I knew that he wouldn't come to my current home because I am very close to his family, right? So I started feeling the conversations are not all right. And again, here I am getting one shock after another, one trauma after another. Why is he talking to me like this now? Like, why is he behaving like this? He said, this is a business. I'm like, no, this is not a business. He's using these words. Yani he's being extremely insensitive, extremely brutal, extremely crazy with his approach. And this is starting to make you question everything. I was like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. It's interesting he can make time to go on a Dawah trip, but not a trip to meet her dad in person. This gets worse and worse. This bogus nikah, wanting to give very little mahr. Then he doesn't even have much conversation on the phone or meet her family. He doesn't want to come to her house. And this whole thing about not going to her house until she moved out, it's the same anxiety and paranoia about not going to Morocco to meet her family. He wants to avoid anything where he has to show his face and level of commitment. The Zoom nikah, he didn't want to show his face. The witnesses were strangers to Aisha. He doesn't want to talk on the phone much. It sounds like he wants to leave as little trace of this relationship as possible.
He said it's a misunderstanding. I told him, look, what do you want? Yani, what are you asking for? He said, listen, the only thing I want as a marriage is like we meet in hotels and that's it. I'm only going to pay for the hotel. I told him, my child, my daughter, my dad spoke to you. I told him, the home, you promised me a home. At that point, he was like, this is what I want. It's either you like it or you don't like it. He even said, you agreed to this. He started telling me, you agreed to this, you agreed to this, you agreed to this. And I was like, no, I didn't agree to this and I can prove this. I can prove right now through conclusion and through deduction and through logic that this is not the arrangements that I agreed to. So he said, no, you know what, I want a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. No way. He said that.
He said, I want a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship?
He said, I want a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is hearing me right now. He said, I would like a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. He said, it's okay, we're going to have the best of both lives, of both worlds.
Hey.
Like, he said this.
I'm shocked.
You are shocked what happened to me.
So, let me get this right. This person of knowledge, Quran, I'm just trying to understand, what is it? I don't know, is it just memorized? I'm trying to understand, what is it? I'm just shocked.
Yeah, even the sheikh who got involved, he heard this again from him and he said, I want intimacy only marriage. He texted me and the sheikh read that text and he was like, this is what I wanted and there is nothing else you're gonna get from me. He said, make your decision. I told him, of course I'm not going for this. The marriage ended.
Okay, so here comes the hotel marriage part. Aisha sounds like she agreed to polygyny, but she didn't agree to this Misyar hotel marriage. Why would she? She wants to have a family life again, the life she originally set out to have, a husband and more kids. She didn't agree to be a temporary hotel-only wife. To be honest, how many Muslim women would agree to that? Not many at all, especially when you're conditioned to believe your entire life that this religion values women. Well, we have Misyar marriage here, and that debunks the legitimacy of the claim that Islam values women.
This extremist liberal human rights ideology is set to destroy the human race itself. And Islam is the only religion and the only community that is pushing back and saying, no, we want to preserve our marriages, our families, our community, our humanity. We don't want this never-ending nightmare of human rights. No, thank you. Harris doesn't seem to be getting it. I'm arguing that Sharia law is superior to human rights because Sharia rule preserves marriage and family. Okay, do you value marriage? Do you value family?
How can this system value women when it's morally and Islamically correct to lie to your first wife about getting a second, then getting a second wife and using and discarding her? Like I said, prostitutes are treated better than this. The whole Dawah lie of Islam encourages family values is a fraud.
And the irony is that he divorced me in a time that is not allowed for him to divorce me because there is specific times for even divorce has to be specifically done in specific ways. And basically he was like, that's it, done. Khalas, don't talk to me again, you are divorced. He was like, khalas, the matter is done. I have no questions to ask. The marriage is halal, divorce is halal. I've never agreed to the marriage that he claims that I agreed to because all these are proofs. These are evidence. you know.
Yeah.
And one main evidence that the people who are around him know about him is he's extremely keen about keeping evidence. And his conversation with me and my dad was on auto delete. This is someone who is very keen in keeping evidence that served for the best of his interest.
Yeah.
The fact that he's setting our conversation on auto delete, what does that mean? He's talking to me from a mobile number with no contract. Only the people who are involved in marriage know that phone number.
Yeah.
So what you are trying to hide here, the evidence you are trying to hide, is definitely an evidence that doesn't work for your best interest.
When Aisha says that divorce happened at a time that it shouldn't be done, what she is likely referring to is being divorced on her period, which is haram, but still valid. That's also interesting about keeping evidence and having these conversations on auto-delete. Sneaky. Was he trying to destroy evidence? Liars will typically want to add as little complication as possible to their story. He's adding complication to this story by keeping evidence or proof, so to speak. Liars will tell a lot of details, but not too many details, especially details that can be checked, hence deleting texts. Liars also tell details in terms of generalities, using safe topics. If Aisha mentions a timeline of events, fatwa websites, hotels, etc., this story would become even more interesting if Aisha was even more specific about these details. These would all be checkable evidence against hijab.
For someone to memorize the Quran, Islamic knowledge, teaching everyone else, wallahi, to me you're zero. Zero. How could you have all of this stuff? And then you go and do this thing to whoever. This could be somebody standing in front of me who somebody robbed, stole from, oppressed in different ways, or pressure up in different ways. So to me, this is the reason why you truly do not know someone until you've traveled with them, you live with them, or you've done business with them. Wallahi, let me tell you something. It shows me, sisters, brothers, you're watching this, wallahi, you're not for the Arabic, you're not for the Quran. And it's a sad thing for us to say. It's come to the moment that we have to tell you, warn you, don't fall for the folk, don't fall for the Quran, yani, his beard, her niqab, jilbab. Do not fall for the stuff. Like Allah gives us many examples in the Quran that it is the taqwa that matters, internal taqwa, subhanAllah. So to me, the message is very clear, and the reason we've done this video is to warn others and warn those who are in the public sphere.
Basically, you can't trust any of these guys, no matter what. You can't trust them if they are sheikhs, da'is, someone in the masjid, someone who memorized the entire Quran. None of these guys can be trusted, but the interesting thing is that these are the same people who we are supposed to seek for knowledge, guidance, and help with doubts. Basically, this community is filled with unsafe men.
So these are a couple very important points that I wanted to make. The first one is the consequence of what he has done. He has completely destroyed my life and that of my kid. Completely. I have no capacity to trust absolutely no one for marriage anymore. And I am making a call to the scholars and the people of knowledge, our seniors, and I am telling them that it's their duties to come out and clarify what Islam is, what marriage is, and the rulings around them. Because if the majority of audience and people are going to take Islam from public influencers on social media, this is what's going to happen, and this is the degree of destruction that we will fall into. Everything is going to be destroyed, and the Ummah is going to be destroyed. And as I told you before, he's claiming that the marriage that he has done is halal, and I am telling out there, please do put the links that I will share with you from the reliable sources and scholars who actually explain the categories of marriages that are actually halal. This is my story, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to deal with him, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give justice, because justice has not been served. Subhanallah, yani in our Quran and in our Islamic history, even the Prophets alayhimus salam have been called out in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam for a facial expression. Abasa wa tawalla. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did call out the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam about few actions he's done. Yeah. So the fact that these scholars who got involved in this story refuse to come out and call him out by name is something that I will hold them accountable for. Anyone who does anything wrong of this regard that involves the haqq of someone else, he didn't sin in secret. This is not a sin between him and Allah. This is someone else's life. It's my rights, it's the right of my child. is my father's right because he trusted him. So I do strongly believe that anyone who is involved in this, I am calling them out to come out and make a step. And I do ask them to come out and call him out by name for the best interests of the da'wah here in the UK. Because when these du'at are going to know that if he ever transgresses and does anything wrong, that he's going to be called out by name, I don't think anyone is going to be able to do something like this.
I think that's true.
Aisha is such a crazy stalker, but she's not seeking her next victim. Normally, grifters and frauds will go from one victim to another. Instead, she says she has no capacity to trust. I don't blame her. Fast forward months later when this interview emerges and so much else has happened, I am sure she really cannot trust anymore. Aisha is also saying here that she wants scholars and imams to come out and clarify what Islam is. That's a pretty bold statement to make from someone who is being accused of lying and making up this entire story. I'm sure if these same scholars invited Aisha to these conversations and statements they made in public, she would happily do it and recall the same story that she has been telling this entire time. My analysis of lying versus truth-telling. So very quickly, I wanted to point out some interesting research that I was looking into. Lying is a very complex cognitive process, and there have been many studies done on this. In general, people are not good at detecting lies versus truth-tellers. What's even more interesting in the research, the same applies for people in fields where they are supposed to be proficient at detecting liars. There is research on this as well. I am not perfect at these things, but I do have a very investigative mind, and I wanted to do some reading in regards to this topic and explore it with you guys. In forensic psychology, researchers developed an interesting technique to enhance deception detection. This technique is known as the model statement. Researchers started developing interview techniques to enhance deception detection in forensic settings. One of those techniques is the model statement, which has been shown to be effective for eliciting information and cues to deception in single interviews. In the current research, we focus on the effect of the model statement in multiple interviews. Participants were interviewed 3 times, each time 1 week apart, about a genuine or fabricated memorable event. They listened to a model statement at time 1, time 2, times 1 and 2, or not at all. Hypotheses focus on participants' verbal reports at time 3 and on unique details provided across the 3 interviews. In both instances, truth tellers provided more core and total details and complications and fewer common knowledge details in self-handicapping strategies and obtained higher proportion scores of complications and core details than lie tellers. Complications and proportion of complications were the most diagnostic cues. The model statement was effective only when presented at time 1, resulting in more common knowledge details. That was a lot. So for those who are not familiar with APA-style writing for empirical articles, let me give you a summation of what all of that meant. Researchers have created what they call the model statement, which is a lie detection technique. In this particular study, they focused on verbal cues rather than nonverbal. 243 people were selected for this study and interviewed once per week for 3 weeks about a genuine or fabricated memorable event. There were 4 groups. Model statement week 1, heard the model statement at the first interview. Model statement week 2, heard the model statement at the second interview. Model statement weeks 1 and 2, heard it at both the first and second interviews. Model statement control, never heard the model statement. The results were interesting. The hypothesis focused on the participant's verbal report at time 3 and the unique details provided across all 3 interviews. Now comes the fun part. The truth tellers provided more core details and complications and fewer common knowledge details in self-handicapping strategies. So, core details in Aisha's case would be dates and times, the hotel meetings, not meeting her dad. Complications would be details about arguing with her family in hijab, for example. In some prior research, when the model statement was used, both truth and lie tellers provided more information in interviews. The differences were notable when the type of detail reported is taken into account. Now, we said truth tellers do not deviate much from core details, complications, etc. A liar, on the other hand, tells more peripheral details. common knowledge details, and self-handicapping strategies than truth tellers. Peripheral details would mean the background noise, small, irrelevant points. It's all side information that doesn't affect the core story. It's simply filler. Peripheral details can also be describing what kind of shirt Salman wears. Salman cosplaying as Freud, or how many subscribers Mohammed Hijab has. Hijab's camp says that women sometimes lie and accuse men falsely. That's a general stereotype, not proof that Aisha lied. Last but not least, let me explain self-handicapping. Self-handicapping is when someone makes excuses in advance to protect themselves in case they fail or get caught lying. In this case, the most famous strategy has been preemptively discrediting the other side by calling Aisha a stalker, mentally unwell, etc. Basically, if you catch any consistency in this story, assume that Aisha is crazy, not the fact that Hijab may be lying. Applying the model statement to Aisha's case. I am not going to be able to reproduce a study like this, but I felt as though there were some interesting takeaways from the model statement that could be used to apply Aisha's interview with Ali Dawah, Behind Veils, and other audio that I have been exposed to so far. Let's first point out a few things here about a liar versus a truth teller. People who are telling the truth will add complications to the story, such as details of what they wore. Remember how she said Hijab would wear a mask to the hotel? That's a complication instead of a simplified version of the story. Another specific complication she added was the timeline of 8 months Hijab ghosted her. A liar would seek to add as little complication as possible. A truth teller will keep core memories consistent, which she did. What are the core components of this story that remain the same? She talks consistently about the hotel marriage, her dad not being involved, the situation with the neighbors. I can go on here, but I wanted to take a minute to show a table that explains the expectation of the model statement and how it aligns with Aisha's observed behavior, followed by supplementing with concrete examples from her story. Let's see by comparing both interviews, if Aisha leans more towards a liar or a truth teller over the course of different interviews. Let's take a look at the table I created below. So here we have the expectation of her behavior. According to the model statement, does Aisha's testimony align with what a truth-telling person might do? Yes, and we also have examples that can stand the test of scrutiny here. Aisha has no signs of self-handicapping strategies here. She increases the expectations from Islamic scholars and even says she is willing to testify. She doesn't make any excuses in the event that she's caught in a lie. Any peripheral details she does offer are tied to the core story. There's nothing distracting in any of her interviews. She sticks to telling her story. Conclusion. After analyzing Sister Aisha's interviews, both with Ali Dawah and Behind Veils, and comparing her retelling of events across multiple settings months to years later, the pattern is clear. Her story remains consistent, detailed, and complicated in ways that align with a truth teller, not a liar. She does not simplify her story to make herself look good. She introduces messy complications, emotional struggles, and painful admissions that most liars would avoid if they were fabricating a story. Her timeline stays stable. Her emotional responses are proportional and cumulative, not theatrical. Her details are often verifiable, not vague. On the other hand, the behavior from Mohammed Hijab, hiding communications, minimizing verifiable interactions, threatening retaliation, and refusing to directly address the allegations fits precisely with the behavior patterns associated with somebody avoiding accountability. If Sister Aisha is lying, she would be among the most skilled, consistent liars ever studied, holding a multi-layered lie together across different platforms, timelines, and emotions without cracking once. That is statistically unlikely. The forensic models predict exactly what we are seeing. A truth teller, recalling a deeply painful betrayal while navigating a religious system that enabled her mistreatment. At the end of the day, you don't need a PhD in forensic psychology to recognize when someone's pain is real. You just have to listen carefully. And today, I listened. If you like this kind of content and want to see more of my takes on women's issues in Islam, as well as deep dives into the world of deception versus truth in the Dawah world, click subscribe and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will leave the link to Patreon in the description below. This is Mrs. Friendly Ex-Muslim, signing out.